Welcome to She Sells Radio. Today's episode is going to be so powerful. I already know. And I first heard about the book Patriarchy Stress Disorder through a friend of mine in a mastermind that I was in last year. And when I read the book by our guest today, Dr. Valerie Rein, so much in my life finally made sense that hadn't made sense before. And there were a lot of things I'd been making myself wrong for and judging myself for that finally clicked for me. And this whole book and the topic we're going to be speaking about today ties in as well with why I created She Sells, which is that so much of what I saw in the sales coaching and training space just wasn't designed with women in mind. And at our Sedona retreat several months ago, which you may have seen on social, I shared a quote from the book with the women who were there, which sparked a huge conversation. It was bigger than I expected. It changed the trajectory of the retreat, and it also changed the trajectory of many of the women's lives who were there. And I knew I wanted to share Dr. Valerie with the She Sells Radio community because her message is so powerful. It needs to be heard, and it really will transform your life. So I'm going to give you just a bit of Dr. Valerie's bio, and then we're going to get into a really, really powerful conversation for you today. So Dr. Valerie Rein is a psychologist and a women's mental health expert who has discovered patriarchy stress disorder, also known as PSD, and created the only science-backed system for women, for helping women achieve their ultimate success, happiness, and fulfillment by healing the intergenerational trauma of oppression. She holds an EDM in psychological counseling from Columbia University and a PhD in psychology from the Institute of Transpersonal Psychology. Her #1 Amazon best-selling book, Patriarchy Stress Disorder, The Invisible Barrier to Women's Happiness and Fulfillment, has been heralded by reviewers as the most important body of literary work for our modern times, and perhaps the most important book of the century for women. Dr. Valerie's cutting-edge programs have helped thousands of women shift from how much can I bear to how good can it get, from survival to thriving in their work and personal lives. Dr. Valerie, thank you so much for being here on She Sells Radio. We're so excited to have you.
I'm excited to be here, Lise. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh my gosh. How did you discover patriarchy stress disorder? What happened in your life where this was something that you discovered?
I think my personal development journey has been guided throughout my life from the time when I was very little. Before I knew the words personal development, it was guided by this one question: what's wrong with me? All these messages that I was getting indicated that something was wrong with me, such as don't laugh so loud. People don't like that. Don't be so smart. No one would want to marry you. Go easy on that dessert. You'll get fat. AKA no one would want you. And oh, look, you're getting so skinny, eat something. I just couldn't get it right. And so to figure out what's wrong with me once and for all and fix it, I went down the path of studying psychology. And 2 graduate degrees later, I thought that I was living the life of my dreams. I had everything I had ever wanted. I was working in the field that I loved. I loved my work. I had a thriving private practice in New York. Had a lovely home, beautiful family, beautiful daughter. And if you had asked me, Valerie, are you happy? I would have said, of course I'm happy. I have everything I ever wanted. And at the same time, I knew that there was something more. I knew there was something more that I wanted to do with this message. I kept seeing in my clients, who were mostly high achieving women, that there was also more that they were craving. And I wanted to kind of have more time freedom. I love to travel. So I wasn't too ambitious at that time. I just wanted a little bit more freedom, right? And a little bit more impact with this work. I wanted to get the message out there. And so I started studying business and how to really get myself out of that therapy office and step into essentially thought leadership. And year after year, I was investing in business programs. I was investing in the business I was doing all the things I was told to do, writing a blog, posting on social. I had a podcast. So I was working in my private practice, sometimes up to 14 clients back to back, like pretty insane. And I was pouring pretty much everything I was making into trying to start this new business. So it has become a very expensive hobby, because no matter what I was doing, no matter how much I was studying, how hard I was working, it was not moving the needle. And I was very, very frustrated. And one day I was on the phone with a client when I noticed I was smiling only with the right side of my face, and the left side of my face was not responding. Neither was my left arm. And so I ended up in the emergency room with symptoms of a stroke. Thankfully, after scanning me up and down for the entire day, they arrived at the diagnosis, quote unquote, just stress. And that was, of course, a huge relief, but also it was hugely surprising and puzzling for me, because I did not feel stressed.
Wow.
Elise, I felt exactly the same way I had felt probably for many, many years, if not for my entire life. And so the question became, how come? First of all, I was not even aware that I was stressed. How come I was so stressed that I ended up in the ER? What was going on? And at the time, I knew to recognize in my system that I had some symptoms of trauma. And the telltale symptom of trauma is a certain disconnection from the body, from parts of the body, from parts of your fullest authentic expression. I was certainly feeling that. It felt like running into invisible in the walls. But I couldn't crack that open, despite years of therapy, despite getting my hands on every self-help book I could find, getting certified as a yoga instructor, mindfulness teacher, going to all sorts of retreats and seminars. And yet that invisible wall was still there. So I was just like, okay, what is going on? And research on epigenetics started popping up. And that's what connected the dots for me, because it was showing that traumatic experiences are genetically transmitted. Like, okay, all right. So traumatic experiences are genetically transmitted. So it didn't necessarily happen in my lifetime, but I might have inherited some trauma. And then the dots really connected for me. Wait a second. Women have been oppressed for thousands of years. For thousands of years, our bodies did not belong to us. Our labor was free. We could not make money. We could not own property. We didn't even have parental rights. We could not marry for love. We could not get a divorce. We had zero sovereignty. And for any even thought of disobedience, women were punished very, very severely. So money, success, visibility, happiness, all of that was not on the menu for women. And those women who reached for that were burnt at the stake, were drowned, locked up in asylums, exiled, terrible fates.
Yeah.
And so it all came together. Oh, okay. So based on the fact that trauma is transmitted between generations, we have the information from thousands of years, multiple, countless generations, about the fact that it's unsafe to be a powerful, visible, wealthy woman, happy, fulfilled woman in the world. It's unsafe. And although the situation has changed, there's a lot more opportunity. But our subconscious still interprets success, visibility, and wealth as unsafe. And all of a sudden, I could see why all my efforts to get my business off the ground were pretty much doomed, were a very expensive hobby, because it was that trauma that was driving the bus from my subconscious. We know from the field of neuroscience now, which I discovered while writing my book, is that our actions are decided in our subconscious. Our actions are decided in our subconscious, and that subconscious carries the imprints of trauma, and it makes these decisions on the basis of whether it's safe or unsafe. That's it. And although consciously I was working so hard, I was investing so much in my visibility, in my thought leadership, in my success, my subconscious was like, oh, no, that is not where we're going. You're going to get yourself killed. So let's make sure that these efforts don't bear fruit. And once I got my eyes on that, I knew what to do, because I knew how to heal trauma. I had those trauma healing tools at my disposal, mind, body, energy trauma healing tools. Yeah. Because the trauma does not live up here in the brain, right? It lives in the entire system, or it's not localized to just our mind. It lives in the entire system. So I started applying these tools, and lo and behold, in the span of, oh gosh, in a very short period of time, I went from making zero in my new business to crossing over the 6-figure mark and crossing over the 7-figure mark the following year.
Amazing.
So year 1, 6 figures, year 2, 7 figures, and then continuing increasing on that trajectory. Yeah. And I started applying it with our clients. I started teaching it in our programs, and our thrivers, that's how we refer to women in our community, are seeing similar results, doubling and then doubling the double and then doubling the double, etc. Because they already had the strategy. Strategy is very important. Yeah. Right. And if you don't have the inner landscape, right? The internal permission for you to actually step into your power, no matter how much strategy you have, it's not going to move the needle. So that became a very exciting thing that, like, all right, found the missing piece. Let's go.
This is so powerful. It's everything that we believe in the She Sells community. There are parts of your story where I'm just like, yep. I've been there too. I've been putting everything in and feeling like I'm spinning my wheels, and why is it not happening? But I think the piece that to me is most illuminating and most unique about your work, because I've really dug into neuroscience, epigenetics for a while now, but your work specifically, speaking of the epigenetics of trauma and the fact that a lot of these barriers, these traumas, they're not even necessarily ours, they're ancestral. And I don't know about you, but I know in a lot of the work that I've done for mindset rewiring and healing, it's like we look back and say, well, what was the experience in my life that created this fear of visibility or created this unworthiness? And I've always been able to find something, but then to know that there's a whole nother layer beneath that isn't even necessarily ours is so illuminating. And if someone, I would love if you can speak to the study in your book, the cherry blossom study that you talk about. If somebody's not familiar with epigenetics and what that is, can you speak just a little bit to that and what happened with the mice and the cherry blossoms?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And me likewise, I had spent many years working one-on-one with practitioners, trying to get at what was it in me, in my life, in my history, that could be accountable for what I was experiencing. And I had tapped out that well, because we only have this much. And I was even thinking, maybe I suppressed something, maybe something like terrible happened to me, but I don't remember. And so this is so important to understand that the bulk of what we're carrying in our system that is creating that feeling of not being safe in our fullest authentic expression, in our power, in our wealth, in our visibility, has nothing to do with us at all. So in this study, researchers introduced the smell of cherry blossoms to mice while simultaneously zapping their feet with mild electric shocks. These mice were then bred, and their children and their grandchildren, when exposed to the smell of cherry blossoms, showed a strong fear and anxiety reaction. All right? They actually saw that these subsequent generations of the mice had more receptors, had more centers in their brains dedicated to perceiving the smell of cherry blossoms specifically. Wow, right?
Yeah.
And the subsequent generations had never been exposed to electric shocks. They had never been exposed to the smell of cherry blossoms growing up. They didn't see their parents and their grandparents react.
Mm.
Right?
Yeah.
So this is a very pure investigation where we saw that the transmission was through epigenetic expression. And it created physiological changes in the brain. And of course, behavior was transmitted as well. Now, zoom out and take a look at all the myriad traumatic experiences that women have gone through over the thousands of years of patriarchy and how that changed us. It's evolution. We evolved to survive.
Yeah.
And women have evolved to survive in a hostile environment where the brighter we allowed ourselves to be, the more we were at peril. Yes, the situation is different, but we're not going to our systems are not going to step out of these evolutionary adaptations unless we consciously work with them. So when I say work with them, we are actually rewiring the nervous system. We are reprogramming the subconscious in this work. And it's an involved process, but the mechanism is very elegant and it's very simple. We practice these trauma adaptations, and we can talk a little bit about what the heck they are, because these trauma adaptations is everything that we've ever sought help for, whether it's through coaching or therapy, self-help, everything that we thought was wrong with us, it's trauma adaptations. Okay. So they developed, right? They developed to keep us safe, to help us survive. But if we want to thrive, they're actually holding us back. And so this deep work is necessary to actually find them and unwind them, because we all, like, my life looked great on the outside looking in. Like, nobody would have ever said, oh, Valerie, she's struggling. I had, Ivy League, graduate degree, a PhD, had a thriving private practice. I was making a lot of money. My life was really good, right?
Yeah.
Yes. And yet there were so many trauma adaptations keeping me from living my life fully and feeling free and feeling happy and being in the flow. But I didn't know that they were there. And this is a tragic aspect of PSD, because we are literally born into this invisible inner prison with all these trauma adaptations inherited. We don't know that it can be otherwise. We have no idea. We don't have these role models. We don't know. Like, everybody's in the same boat. But what we do know is that there is a teeny tiny voice, that quiet sense of satisfaction that sometimes we're allowed to come up to the surface. Or maybe we don't allow it to come up to the surface. We just see ourselves over shopping or compulsively exercising, compulsively eating, or over drinking, or overworking, or shying away from intimacy, shying away from our fullest impact. Or we look at our bank account. Well, does it reflect your genius? Does it reflect your contribution? If the answer is no, that means there are invisible inner walls. This is how we begin to know that this little voice of dissatisfaction, maybe we need to really listen to that. Maybe we need to give that more space, because it can get better. It can get so much better. In fact, it can get so much better than you think is even possible for you. I got to say that every aspect of my life has way overshot my limited imagination, like a long time ago.
Oh my gosh.
I didn't know to put that on the vision board. I didn't know to want that, because that wasn't in my frame of reference. But the healing journey, little by little, by creating safety, stepping into that next level of success, love, receiving, giving, enjoying, that has been unfolding petal by petal, the possibilities that really I can clearly say are beyond my wildest dreams.
Yes. And I want to speak to the healing journey in a moment, because that piece is very relieving that there is a path out. But I want to
Yes.
first speak to what, and I don't know who said this quote, but something to the effect of, you can't break free from a prison if you don't know you're in one.
Mm-hmm.
Which to me, when you talk about in your book, you talk about the prison guards and the prison security system, and how these trauma adaptations will manifest as things that we think are normal. So, and you share a story in the book about a woman who has basically a dream opportunity come right in front of her, and she forgets to follow up, or she basically just brushes it off and says, "Oh, this isn't for me." Um, as an example of what we do, and you speak to how these um, the protective mechanisms will manifest as procrastination, as distraction, even. And these things are so powerful. Like, we don't even often know they're going on. We just think that's normal.
We think that's normal, right? We just need to get
Yeah.
another daily planner
Yeah.
next year. 2023 is going to be different, y'all,
Right.
because I'm going to get another planner. I'm going to, create a whole new system and structure for my life. But we just don't consider that the subconscious is making all these decisions. So it doesn't
Yes.
matter what's in your daily planner, really, at the end of the day. What
Wow.
matters is if your system gives you permission for that or not.
Which
Right.
is so, yeah, please speak to this more, because this is it sometimes, when I first heard this, it was like, how much am I really in control then of what's going
Yeah.
on? And that can feel a little bit disempowering. And so I know we're going to speak to how
Ooh,
we take back our power in this,
yeah.
right? But,
I love that you brought that up, Elise, that
mhm,
it feels disempowering. It can appear this way at face value because,
mhm,
right, am I in control? And the healing journey is how you actually get back in the driver's seat, because
mm,
through the healing journey, we get to align our subconscious
yeah.
with our conscious desires, with our conscious creation, and then create our life and our business from that place of deep, authentic desires. But even to
Mm,
know these deep, authentic desires truly is quite a journey, because they're all protected by these prison guards. They're all protected because there's nothing more dangerous to the patriarchal status quo than a woman who is in touch with her desires. And clearly,
oh, yeah.
clearly and so we don't even know what we want, which is like the saddest part. Like, you think you know what you want, but once you start going into the body, into your subconscious, it's oftentimes surprising, like when women
Yeah.
come out like with tears out of these practices that we do, and they're like, I had no idea. And those visions, they scare them because sometimes they're bigger, or sometimes they're simpler, or sometimes they're shooting for something big, but they come out of it and like, oh my gosh, my vision, it was so simple. I actually don't want
Wow.
all this big thing. I want something simple, but it feels so amazing, right?
Oh,
And
yeah.
more often than not, it brings tears, that deep recognition of, oh my gosh, I had been building something that I did, that was not even my dream.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's big. And those prison guards, they show up as the imposter syndrome, as the invisible,
Mm,
as that critic in the critic, distractions. And the so-called adult ADD has a lot to do with that. Just
mm,
look at what all these mechanisms are accomplishing at the end of the day. They're keeping you safely in the status quo because they're
oh,
preventing you from moving towards your desires, knowing your desires, manifesting, acting on your desires. And they're very effective at that on the level of the mind, on the level of the body, and then actions. That's how the prison guards show up. On the
mm,
level of the body, they can show up in interrupted sleep, energy, low energy, fatigue, anxiety, depression, all sorts of pretty much every stress related health condition, which even
yeah.
conventional medicine accepts that
Right.
most, like I think 95, according to
Yeah.
the conventional models, 95% of all conditions are stress related. And stress is created by unprocessed trauma. It is driven by unprocessed trauma because there's so much of it in our systems. So there's an epidemic of autoimmune conditions that affect women disproportionately to men and affect women of color also disproportionately to white women. So consider this for a moment, how much intergenerational trauma and stress we're carrying. Women and women of color have the layers of oppression through racism, the intergenerational trauma of slavery. For Black women, it's staggering. And this is how we need to see the invisible, right? So that we can do the impossible. So the mind, the body, and on the level of actions, the prison card shows up as distractions, as addictive behaviors, as you are staring in the face of an opportunity that your conscious mind really wants. But then instead of responding to that email or sending that pitch, all of a sudden you find yourself by the fridge with a spoon in one hand and the carton of Haagen-Dazs in the other, or you are on the phone making child appointments for your kids for next year, or you are scheduling your car maintenance, or you're doing social media research, and then nothing moves forward. Right? And when I ask women, at our event, we have this awakening event that we offer from time to time. That's called the Thriving Experience. And it's open to everyone. You don't need to be a member of our community to come in, although a lot of our clients attend also. Something that I ask women once they get to know these prison guards, that's where we do a lot of unpacking so that they can get to know what's operating in their own invisible inner prison. How much of your time, energy, and consequently money, but I don't even put the money into the question. How much time, let's say, put it simply, do you think on average you spend engaging with your prison guards, trying to overcome them, trying to outsmart them, outrun them, psych yourself out of that? And the answer on average is 90%.
Oh my gosh.
90% in one way or another. It's a effing miracle that we have accomplished as much as we have accomplished working on like 10% of the time and energy available to us. Imagine reclaiming even 10 more percent. You would double. You would double, everything available to you. And that means double the ease also. And that's exactly what this healing journey is all about. That's what it makes available to us.
Oh my gosh, it's so empowering. I can relate to so much of what you're sharing, and even thinking back on my own experience, where I've absolutely had moments throughout the years where I've been working on a big project and I do some outreach to a prospect, and it's a dream prospect, and it sounds ridiculous to say this out loud, Dr. Valerie, but it's in line with what you're saying. I do outreach to this prospect. They write back, they want more information. And that's guess what is the one email that I forget to reply to. And for those of you who are listening, I'm doing forget in air quotes. It's that one. And your brain gives you something else to pay attention to or something else to focus on.
That's
and then
the
you
invisible
think
in the prison.
It's wild. Yeah.
That's that in action. And you know what? Over time, we probably train ourselves through mindset work to overcome that, to push through, push through. But guess what? The invisible inner system has not gone away. The invisible inner prison, it's still there. And the prison guards will show up in other ways and in other areas. Either we're making money, but it's expensive money, like it's costing us a lot in time, energy, and maybe not super ideal clients. We know there's something better, there's something more. Or we're not enjoying our lives as much as we'd like to. Like maybe we're doing well in business, but our family life is not that great. Maybe our sex life is not that hot. Maybe we can't fully relax at the end of the day without a glass of wine or a pill. Or streaming shows, right? And none of it is our fault. It's not like a character flaw. It is actually a mechanism that is trying to keep us safe by trying to keep our nervous system always on, always on. And that leads to exhaustion, that leads to
Huh.
burnout, that leads to not being able to tap into turn on and orgasms and satisfaction in every area of life. Because in order to feel pleasure, we need to feel relaxed. And to be
Mm.
relaxed, we need to feel safe. And
Yes.
ironically, the more successful we become, the more those things activate in our system that we're unsafe, because we're more visible, we're
Yes.
wealthier, there is more at stake. And so we see so many successful women in the public eye crash out with unexpected kind of freak health things.
Yes. Yeah.
Right? My ER story is sadly not unique at all
Mm.
in that, or, relationships implode, or,
Yeah.
their parenting doesn't feel as satisfying. So there's just, we're working so hard, and it can be easier,
Yes.
and it can be a lot more joyful.
Yes. Yeah.
That's kind of the mission, right?
Oh
That's
my
the mission of the
gosh.
work.
Yes. And so in just a moment, we'll talk about how do we start to break free, because that everyone at this point is, wow, there's a lot going on behind the scenes I didn't know about. What do I do about this? But I just want to share this, because this to me was a recent example of this happening. And it would have scared me a lot more years ago, but even, reading your book and understanding more of this work, it made more sense. I'd set a next level revenue goal in my business, and it requires a lot more visibility and a lot more leadership. And I set the goal, and I was in meditation. I do morning meditation every day. I love it. It's a powerful time for me. But I go into my
Beautiful.
meditation the next day, and I start, it feels like receiving messages that my family's going to die. And I start having these very like visceral images, and
Wow.
it's almost horrific, the things that started showing up. And I was like, what is going on? Like, where is this coming from? And it took me a few weeks, and it felt stronger. And I started, what's wrong with me? Oh my gosh, I'm going to manifest this because I'm giving it attention, right? What we focus on, and so it was just this. And then it kind of dawned on me. And I think this is what we're talking about, right? Our
Yeah.
brain will give us all of these things to try to stop us from moving forward. And it distracted me for a few weeks from moving forward
Oh
with some of the
gosh.
things right in front of me. But that's PSD, right? Like that's,
Totally.
yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
And yeah, it reminds me of another story. There are so many stories. This one
Yeah.
kind of stayed with me because this this woman shared with me as we were like unpacking this work with her. She has had a lot of success in her business, and she's wanted this car for a while, this super sexy Porsche decked
Mm.
out. And she's like, okay, I'm going to get it. So she gets it. She gets in the car. She's feeling great. She starts driving off the lot. And all of a sudden she's flooded with images of her kids, like being hurt, like
Oh,
some shit
yes.
that's not even right. That's
Yes.
not even kind of, they were not at risk in any way, let's just put it
Yes.
that way. But like the onslaught of that programming
Oh my
that
gosh.
comes up every time there is that next level
Yes.
to, yeah. So,
Oh,
yeah. And of course, like that didn't prevent her from, keeping her car, and like
good for her. Yeah.
eventually, like she worked through that. But it also, right, it also for somebody it will hold them back, and
Yeah.
for somebody it will become just a thing that they kind of, okay, I guess I just take the bad with the good, right?
Yes.
I can't
Yeah.
have it
Gosh.
all. I'll just have some anxiety, but at least I'm making money.
Oh,
But it doesn't
it's
have to be this way.
I so appreciate your work, and that it doesn't have to, because when you know what's going on, you can start to take action around it, right? So tell us. So I love kind of the theme of the book is making that shift from how much can I bear to how good can it get, which I think a lot of women don't ever ask themselves that question. How good can it get? It's such a beautiful question. How do we? I know we don't have time in the time we have now, but what are some steps we can use to start to make that shift?
Mhm. How good can it get? Yeah, yeah. This question can really revolutionize your life. And
Mm.
again, there has to be that internal permission. And how we get to that internal permission is not because you decide, you drop the directive from upstairs downstairs. You got to get to uncover what's in your subconscious. So there's a five-stage journey that I describe in my book, and we actually introduce in the Thriving Experience, a 3-day event that is open for everyone who resonates with this message, and we make it super affordable in terms of attendance. At this point, early bird starts at $47. So
Amazing.
it's really powerful. And what we walk you through is the 5-stage journey that starts with waking up in prison, recognizing that it's not you, and unpacking those layers of intergenerational, personal, and collective traumas. There's so much to uncover there. And what's helpful to understand is that collective trauma requires collective healing. All of us might have done one-on-one work, but collective is where we received these traumas, and this is what's required to heal. So being in an environment where everybody is in the same boat, first of all, you get this message very, very deeply and viscerally that it's not you, because everybody is sharing something that you thought were your deepest secrets.
Yes.
And it was just you who were, messed up in this way. So it's very powerful. And then we get to meet the prison guards, map them out. We then move to evolving them to bodyguards. We use the same biological mechanisms that are keeping us safe and employ them, as the name suggests, to protect us on the journey toward our desires, not protect us by keeping us invisible in a prison. And once we have reclaimed so much time and energy, and consequently money as well, through this evolution, we have the resource to dig in deeper, to uncover and heal deeper layers of these traumas. We call this stage tunnel digging. And then we emerge. And the final stage is the one where our thrivers and I spend most of our time. It's called Savoring Freedom. And interestingly, you would think, oh my gosh, that's a cakewalk, right? I've emerged and got to savor freedom. And that's where actually the biggest freakouts begin to happen, at that next level.
And it sounds crazy, but it's so true. It's so true.
I've reached my goals. Everything is great. And then,
your family's going to die. It's
and there can be, self-sabotage that tries to happen, and all sorts of things, and unexpected breakdowns of systems and things. So we actually work on evolving the nervous system to accept, to receive greater good, greater pleasure, greater wealth, greater intimacy, love, all of it. I remember when my book came out, I could not read positive reviews. Like, give me a negative review, I would be poring over it like forever. But I could not. I literally was like this, like I could not digest and metabolize them. It took me months to begin, because my system just, and this is true for all our systems, based on thousands of years of patriarchy, all these channels for receiving love, appreciation for our work in the world, money, have withered, all but atrophied. We don't have capacity for that. And so we build this capacity doing this work. So if this is resonating for you, the thrivingexperience.com is definitely where you want to be. And you can grab the book at drvalerie.com, drvalerie.com/book. You can download the first chapter free, both in audio and PDF. And I narrated the audiobook. So put a lot of juice into that narration, a lot of catalytic energy. I consume most books on audio, so that's available there too. You can pick up an audiobook. And most importantly, I want to say, just know the biggest danger that this conversation contains is that you will leave it at the level of, oh, it was an interesting conversation, interesting ideas, and will not actually go deeper, because that's what PGs are designed to do, to convince you that you don't need it, your life is good enough, or you got what you need from the conversation. I just want to shine the light
Yes.
on this
Yes.
biggest danger, because these are the same PGs that show up every day, blocking opportunities that you have from your view.
Yeah.
They block them from you even perceiving them, let alone acting on them and receiving the benefit.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. And I can't recommend the book enough. So go get the book, go connect with Dr. Valerie online. The experience sounds amazing. I'm going to sign up for it. That sounds just
Oh, well, we'll
phenomenal.
have a great time.
Yeah. Thank you for putting that together.
Mm.
Final question for you, Dr. Valerie. I'm curious for you in your quest of how good can it get? What's next on the horizon for you? What feels expansive? What's kind of that next level that you currently are creating in your life?
Yeah, I'm so glad you asked. So it's always the next level.
Mm.
And I've been healing my relationship with money for a long time. And every layer of healing has enabled us to make that next leap, 6 figures, 7 figures, going beyond that.
Yeah.
And now I'm in an interesting exploration. I channel, right? I
Yeah.
channel money wisdom. It's hot, it's awesome. And
Mm.
what I've been channeling lately is this instruction to actually explore what it's like, and yeah, explore the power of separating work from money completely,
Mm.
completely, and
Mm.
exploring other vehicles to invite money, to grow wealth. And this is what I'm diving into, both in terms of inner work and what I'm studying and what I'm teaching. So our thrivers get the front row seat to all that I'm discovering in my adventures.
Yes. So good. I'm on a similar journey too. And I haven't put it that way of separating work from money. And I love that positioning of it. And what an empowering place to be, an empowering way to lead your community as well. So thank you from the bottom of my heart and from every single person listening. Your work is so timely and truly transformational. And I can't thank you enough for what you've created. It's really, really powerful.
Thank you, Lisa. It's been a pleasure chatting with you and sharing with your audience. Thank you all who shared your time with us today.
Absolutely. All right, my friend, for you listening, go connect with Dr. Valerie, sign up for the Thriving Experience, get her book, Patriarchy Stress Disorder. It will change your life. Connect with her online. Thank you so much for being a member of our She Sells community. And I'll see you next week on our next episode of She Sells Radio. Bye for now.